Welcome to this deep dive, specially curated for the daily show Vintage Car Chronicles.
Available on Spotify,
Deezer,
Apple Music,
and YouTube. Today we're strapping in
You're gonna be strapping in.
for a ride through the history and legacy of a true automotive icon, the Ferrari F50.
You know those cars that just make you stop and stare?
The ones that just feel like a wild animal.
Barely tamed.
Yeah, barely tame.
That's the F50.
That's the F50 in a nutshell.
It's incredible how the F50 went from being,
Kind of misunderstood.
completely misunderstood when it first came out to being hailed as one of the greatest analog supercars ever built.
I think that's right.
It's,
And its story is almost as captivating as the car itself.
I think so.
Okay, let's set the stage.
Yeah.
The year is 1995.
Okay.
Ferrari needs a successor to the legendary F40,
A tough act to follow.
to say the least.
Yeah.
They decided to produce just 349 examples of the F50,
Okay.
instantly making it a collector's item.
Right.
But here's the twist.
Okay.
They decided to lease them out for the first 2 years instead of selling them outright.
Interesting.
What was that all about?
That's where things get really interesting.
Okay.
A lot of people saw that lease-only approach as a sign of insecurity from Ferrari. Remember, this was the era of the McLaren F1,
Right.
which was just obliterating performance records.
Yeah.
Ferrari was under immense pressure to deliver something truly exceptional,
So were they trying to sweep a flop under the rug?
hide a dud.
Yeah.
Not quite. In fact, they were hiding a masterpiece,
Okay.
but one that was simply ahead of its time.
Okay.
The F50 was a radical departure from the F40.
Okay.
Instead of another turbocharged monster, Ferrari went back to their roots with a naturally aspirated V12 engine,
Right.
a configuration that's deeply intertwined with Ferrari's heritage.
And this wasn't just any V12, was it?
Absolutely not.
Okay.
It was a 4.7-liter beast directly descended from the engine that powered Alain Prost's Ferrari 641 Formula One car
Wow.
back in 1990.
Okay.
Talk about a racing pedigree.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They were essentially saying, we're putting a Formula One heart into a road car.
But didn't that decision get slammed by the motoring press? I recall reading complaints about the F50's performance being lackluster.
Yeah.
They did complain.
Yeah.
But looking back, those criticisms were a bit short-sighted.
Okay.
They were expecting another turbocharged powerhouse like the F40,
Right.
focused on raw power and straight-line speed.
Mm-hmm.
The F50 was a different animal.
Okay.
It was about purity, about an unfiltered, raw driving experience that went beyond mere numbers.
So it was more about the feel than the figures.
Exactly.
Okay.
Ferrari engineered the F50 with a level of precision that's simply breathtaking.
Okay.
Take the chassis, for example.
Right.
This was Ferrari's first road car to feature a full carbon fiber tub.
Right.
Essentially, a lightweight, super strong shell that forms the core of the car.
Yeah.
This technology was straight out of their racing program,
Right.
and it resulted in a chassis that weighed a mere 102 kilograms. That's lighter than some motorcycles.
That's mind-blowing.
Well,
And I read that they bolted the engine directly to this Featherlight chassis.
they did, just like in a true F1 car.
Wow.
The gearbox bolted directly to the engine,
Mm-hmm.
and the suspension to the gearbox.
Okay.
The entire car was essentially built around that magnificent V12.
I can only imagine the kind of vibrations you'd feel with that setup.
You would feel every single one.
Really?
It was a visceral experience,
Okay.
which admittedly some journalists criticized.
Mm-hmm.
They found the F50 too harsh, too raw,
Interesting.
but that was the whole point.
Okay.
Ferrari wasn't aiming for comfort or luxury.
Right.
They wanted to create a raw mechanical connection between the driver and the machine.
So they wanted you to feel every single explosion in those 12 cylinders.
Precisely.
Okay.
And they went to great lengths to achieve that.
Right.
There's no power steering, no ABS, no traction control,
Wow.
none of the electronic aids you find in modern cars. It was
Yeah.
just you, the car, and the road.
Sounds like a race car with license plates.
In essence, yes.
Yeah.
But there's a certain approachability to it that might surprise you.
Okay.
Despite its hardcore nature, the F50 isn't intimidating to drive.
Right.
Some even say it's easier to handle than the F40.
That's surprising, considering the lack of driver aids and that powerful engine.
It all comes down to the balance of the car.
Okay.
The F50's weight distribution is nearly perfect. And that carbon fiber chassis provides incredible rigidity.
Right.
It's a car that feels planted and predictable even at high speeds.
Okay.
The steering, while heavy at low speeds,
Yeah.
becomes incredibly communicative as you pick up speed.
Okay.
You can feel exactly what the front tires are doing.
And then there's that gearbox.
Oh, yeah.
That glorious gated 6-speed manual.
That's beautiful.
In a world increasingly dominated by...
lightning-fast paddle shifters.
Yeah.
The F50's manual gearbox is a beautiful reminder of a time when driving was a more hands-on, tactile experience.
I think so.
And it's not just functional. It's a joy to use.
The throws are short and precise.
Mm-hmm.
And that mechanical clink as you slot the lever into each gate is incredibly satisfying.
Oh, yeah.
It makes you want to shift just for the sake of shifting.
Like a beautifully crafted mechanical puzzle.
Yeah.
Each shift a small victory.
And then we have the sound.
Oh,
that sound.
Yes.
Imagine the most glorious symphony orchestra with each instrument perfectly tuned and playing in perfect harmony.
Okay.
Now replace those instruments with 12 Italian cylinders firing in a carefully orchestrated sequence.
Right.
That's the F50.
It's the kind of sound that sends shivers down your spine.
It makes you want to find the nearest tunnel and just floor it,
Oh, yeah.
just to hear that glorious V12 sing.
It's primal, visceral, and utterly intoxicating.
It is.
You don't just hear it, you feel it in your chest.
The F50's engine note reminds us why we fell in love with cars in the first place.
I think so.
It's a sound that embodies passion power and the sheer joy of mechanical movement. It makes you forget about lap times and horsepower figures and just appreciate the moment.
Yeah.
The experience of being behind the wheel of something this special.
It makes you realize that the F50 isn't just a car, it's an event.
Speaking of events, let's talk about the F50's racing history, or rather the lack thereof.
Okay.
There was the F50 GT, right?
Yeah.
A race car version of the F50 that Ferrari developed,
Right.
but never actually raced.
Yes. The F50 GT.
Oh, right?
It's a bit of a mystery.
Right.
What could have been tale in Ferrari's racing legacy. They built 3 prototypes, and they were absolute beasts.
Okay.
The 4.7-liter V12 was tuned to produce somewhere in the region of 750 horsepower.
750 horsepower from a naturally aspirated V12.
It's astonishing.
That's astonishing.
They
really pushed the limits with the F50.
It was a monster.
Correct.
The F50 GT also featured extensive aerodynamic modifications,
Right.
a stripped-down interior,
Okay.
and a sequential gearbox. It was designed to compete in the BPR Global GT Series, the precursor to today's FIA World Endurance Championship.
So why didn't they race it?
That's the million-dollar question.
Yeah.
Ferrari never gave a clear explanation. Some speculate it was due to cost. Others believe they shifted focus back to Formula One.
Right.
Whatever the reason, the F50 GT never saw a checkered flag.
It's a shame because it sounds like it would have been a formidable competitor.
I agree.
What a what-if scenario for motorsport enthusiasts.
Definitely.
But even without a racing pedigree, the F50 has cemented its place in automotive history.
It has.
It's a car that has transcended its initial mixed reception to become a legend.
It's a testament to the idea that sometimes less is more.
It reminds us that the pursuit of driving purity can lead to automotive greatness.
It makes you wonder what other automotive gems are out there waiting to be rediscovered and appreciated for what they truly are.
That's a question worth pondering, and we'll continue pondering it right after we hear from our sponsors.
We'll be right back with more on the Ferrari F50.
Welcome back to our deep dive into the Ferrari F50.
Before the break, we were discussing the F50's lack of racing pedigree.
Yeah.
But that doesn't mean it wasn't a capable track machine.
Oh, absolutely not.
In fact, I read that the F50 was significantly faster around Ferrari's Fiorano test track than the F40 it replaced.
That's right.
Really?
It lapped Fiorano a full 4 seconds faster than the F40.
Wow.
Despite having less horsepower.
4 seconds?
Yeah.
That's a huge difference.
It is.
What made it so much quicker?
It's a combination of factors.
Okay.
The lightweight carbon fiber chassis, the incredible rigidity, the near-perfect weight distribution,
Right.
and of course that screaming V12,
Yeah.
all contributed to the F50's on-track prowess.
And the lack of electronic driver aids probably played a role too, right?
Yep.
It forced the driver to be more precise and more involved.
Precisely.
Yeah.
The F50 wasn't a car that would do the work for you.
Right.
It demanded skill and attention.
but rewarded those who could master it
Yeah.
with an incredibly pure and rewarding driving experience.
It was like a mechanical ballet, a dance between driver and machine.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And that's something that's becoming increasingly rare in the modern era of hypercars,
Right.
where electronic systems often act as a buffer between the driver and the road.
So it's fair to say that the F50 was ahead of its time in that sense.
Yeah.
It was a throwback to an era when driving was more about feel and finesse
Yeah.
than raw power and technology.
Absolutely.
Okay.
The F50 celebrated the purity of the driving experience, and that's why it's so revered today
Okay.
by enthusiasts who crave that kind of connection
Right.
with a machine.
Let's talk about the F50's design for a bit.
Oh.
I know it was a bit controversial when it first debuted.
The F50 styling, penned by Pininfarina,
Right.
was a significant departure from the more aggressive angular lines of the F40.
Okay.
It was more rounded, more organic.
Some even called it ugly.
They did. But, as is often the case with design,
Yeah.
time has been kind to the F50.
Right.
It's aged gracefully,
Yeah.
and its lines now seem almost timeless.
I think it's one of the most beautiful Ferraris ever made.
It's definitely up there.
It's got this incredible presence on the road.
Yeah.
A low, wide stance that just screams performance.
It certainly commands attention.
And I read that the F50's design was heavily influenced by aerodynamics.
It was.
Every curve and vent serves a purpose.
Yeah. For example, the car was designed to generate what's called downforce,
Okay.
which is essentially an aerodynamic force that presses the car down onto the road,
Uh-huh.
giving it more grip in corners.
So it's form-following function.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Every curve, every vent, every intake was there for a reason.
Okay.
The F50 was as beautiful as it was functional.
And speaking of functional, let's talk about the F50's interior.
Okay.
It was pretty Spartan, wasn't it?
It was.
There were no leather-clad dashboards,
Right.
no fancy infotainment systems,
Nope.
no cup holders,
It was all business.
not even power windows.
Nope.
Wow.
The seats were thinly padded carbon fiber buckets.
Okay.
The steering wheel was devoid of buttons or switches,
Uh-huh.
and the only instruments were the essential gauges.
Sounds more like a race car cockpit than a road car interior.
That was the intention.
Okay.
Ferrari wanted the driver to focus on the task at hand,
Right.
which was driving. There were
Yeah.
no distractions, no creature comforts to dilute the experience.
So it was a car that demanded your full attention.
Absolutely.
Right.
But that was part of its charm. It wasn't a car for cruising down the boulevard.
Right?
It was a car for experiencing the thrill of driving
Yeah.
at its purest.
It was a car for those who wanted to feel every bump in the road.
Every nuance of the engine, every shift of the gearbox.
Precisely.
The F50 was a car that rewarded those who were willing to put in the effort.
Earlier, we mentioned that only 349 F50s were ever made,
Right.
which makes it one of the rarest Ferraris ever built. Combined with its performance engineering and legacy,
Yeah.
it's no surprise that the F50 has become one of the most sought-after Ferraris
It is.
on the collector car market.
Back in 1995, the F50 had a list price of around $480,000.
Okay.
Today, a good condition F50
Yeah.
can fetch anywhere between $4 million and $5 million.
That's an incredible appreciation in value.
It is.
But it's not just about the money.
Right.
The F50 represents a specific era in automotive history,
Yeah.
a time when supercars were still relatively analog, when driving was more about feel and feedback
Absolutely.
than outright speed and technology.
It embodies the passion and the artistry of Ferrari's engineers and designers.
It's a car that will forever be remembered as one of the greatest supercars ever built.
It will.
And it continues to inspire awe and admiration in all who have the privilege of seeing it, hearing it,
Yeah.
and most importantly, driving it.
The F50 is a testament to Ferrari's unwavering commitment to pushing the boundaries of automotive engineering and design.
It represents the culmination of decades of racing experience and technological innovation.
It captures the essence of what it means to be a Ferrari.
And it will forever hold a special place in the hearts of automotive enthusiasts around the world.
The F50 is more than just a car.
Yeah.
It's a legend.
It's a symbol of an era when driving was still an art form.
It's a reminder that sometimes the pursuit of purity can lead to something truly extraordinary.
And it's a car that will continue to inspire and amaze for generations to come.
The Ferrari F50 is a masterpiece.
It's earned its place in the pantheon of automotive greats.
It's a car that will never be forgotten.
It's amazing to think that a car initially seen as a bit of a letdown has become such a revered icon.
It really has.
What do you think caused that shift in perception?
I think it speaks to the enduring power of authenticity.
Right.
In a world obsessed with technology and artificiality,
Right.
the F50 stands as a beacon of purity.
Yeah.
It's a car that's all about the raw, visceral experience of driving, unfiltered and unapologetic.
Like a time capsule
Yeah,
from a bygone era. A
totally.
reminder of what made driving so thrilling in the first place.
What's fascinating is that Ferrari achieved this almost accidentally.
Really?
They weren't setting out to create a retro-inspired masterpiece.
Okay.
They were simply striving to build the most capable road car possible,
Right.
using the technology they had developed in Formula One.
But in doing so, they stumbled upon something truly special.
They did.
They created a car that transcended its time, a car that would only be fully appreciated years later.
The F50 proves that sometimes the best things in life are the least contrived, the ones born out of pure passion for a craft.
It speaks to the soul of the enthusiast,
Yeah.
that desire for a connection with a machine that goes beyond mere transportation.
And in an era where cars are becoming increasingly homogenized,
Right.
increasingly reliant on technology to do the driving for us,
Yeah.
the F50 stands as a defiant symbol of individuality, of the joy of being in control.
It reminds us that driving can be an art form,
It is.
a skill to be honed and perfected.
And it makes you realize that true automotive greatness
Yeah.
isn't about lap times or horsepower figures.
Right.
It's about the way a car makes you feel.
It's about the emotions it
Oh.
evokes, the memories it creates, the stories it tells.
The F50 tells a story of passion,
Okay.
of innovation,
Uh-huh.
of a relentless pursuit of excellence.
A story that will continue to be told for generations to come.
And for today's Vintage Car Chronicles listeners,
Yeah.
it's a story that reminds us
Yeah.
why we're so captivated by the world of vintage cars.
They represent a time when cars were more than just appliances.
Right.
They were expressions of artistry and engineering genius.
They're a window into a past that we can still experience, still appreciate, still learn from.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into the Ferrari F50.
It's been a pleasure.
We hope you enjoyed the ride.
Remember, there's a new episode of Vintage Car Chronicles every day. So be sure to tune in and explore the fascinating world of vintage cars.